count on our closest meeting.
Yeah, well, I look forward to it as well. You know, I'll be at the G20 in a week, and I'm disappointed that you won't be included. But as you know, we will be speaking up strongly for you, and we will continue to make sure that the world is standing with Ukraine, even as Canada is. So I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
This is my video update from Athens, Greece on this Monday morning, August the 28th. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with Elensky's interview with the Ukraine TV channel Rada TV, which is, I believe, the official TV channel of the Ukraine Parliament. There used to be a pond here, but where is it? Not anymore? Or no, it's over here. It's all covered up. Here we go. Used to be a bigger pond. Now it's a much smaller pond. There used to be all of this last time I was in Athens, and now it's dried up. Oh well. What were we saying? What was I saying in here? Yeah, the interview with Rada TV. And Elensky said some very interesting things during this interview. He said that one of the reasons he hasn't shifted the battle from Ukraine to Russian territory is because he fears that if he were to do that, he would lose the support of some of the collective West powers. That is why, according to Elensky, he has not invaded Russia. That is why he is not fighting this conflict on Russian territory, because he says that if he were to do that, then he is afraid that the Ukraine military would be all alone. They would be left to fight the Russian military inside of Russia by themselves, and he doesn't want to risk that. An interesting statement from Elensky. That is the reason why he has not invaded Russia, everybody. It's because he's afraid that no other countries in the collective West are going to join him in his invasion of Russia, and he doesn't want to have to fight the Russian military alone inside of Russia. That is why he hasn't invaded the Russian Federation. Good to know, Elensky. That is very good to know. Elensky also said that he is for elections in 2024, presidential elections in Ukraine. He's all for it. He's like, yeah, let's have elections in 2024, but under two conditions. The first condition for Elensky to hold elections in 2024 is that international observers, collective West observers, have to be present in Ukraine for the elections. And the second condition is that the United States has to give Ukraine $5 billion to hold elections in 2024. If those two conditions are met, then Elensky is all for elections in 2024, presidential elections in 2024. The reason that he gives for the $5 billion is because he doesn't want to take money out of the military budget to fight the conflict with Russia. He doesn't want to take out $5 billion from the military and use it to fund the elections in 2024. So he is saying to the United States, if you want elections, if you want me to have elections, America, if you want me to have elections in 2024, then you give me $5 billion. Give me $5 billion, I have elections. No $5 billion, no elections. You understand? I need $5 billion to have elections and to also buy some homes. I need to buy some more homes. So give me $5 billion, I do elections, I buy home, everybody happy. That's what he told this TV channel during this interview. Elensky also said that his plan for the conflict is to create a long, protracted war. And he actually said that he is modeling this plan after the Israeli scenario quote, "We are ready to fight for a long time if we do not lose people, minimize casualties, like, for example, Israel." Now you have Elensky's plan. His long-term thinking is going to be to model the situation in Ukraine after what he says is the situation in Israel. Elensky also said that once the Ukraine military reaches the borders of Crimea, the administrative borders with Crimea, then Russia will surrender. And he said that once they reach the administrative borders of Crimea, that is when Russia will capitulate. And that is also when, according to Elensky, Russia will demilitarize the peninsula. If we are on the administrative border with Crimea, I believe that it is possible to politically press the demilitarization of Russia on the territory of the peninsula, Elensky said. The problem that Elensky faces is that of reality. that is the problem that he faces, is that the facts on the ground show that Ukraine is still fighting in the gray zone, in the security zone. They still haven't reached the first line of Russian defenses, even though there are analysts that claim that Ukraine has broken through Rabotynya and they have reached the first line of Russian defenses. My understanding is that they are still fighting in Rabotynya. They still have not captured Rabotynya, which means that the Ukraine military has still not reached the first line of defenses. But the problem is for Elensky that the village of Rabotynya is way, way, way far away from Crimea. way, way far away from Crimea. And so if he's got 4 to 6 weeks to get from Rabotynya to Crimea in order to force Russia's capitulation, and it's taken the Ukraine military 3 months to capture Rabotynya, then I think Elensky is not going to be able to force Russia to surrender and to force Russia to demilitarize Crimea, as he stated in this interview. Reality's tough when you're an actor. It's very difficult to deal with reality when you are playing the role of president of Ukraine, which is the role that Elensky is deeply invested in. Anyway, let's talk about some more articles coming out of Ukraine. The Kiev Independent, they put out an article from the Ukraine Armed Forces General Staff, which claims that Russia has lost 261,310 troops in Ukraine since February 2022. The General Staff of Ukraine's armed forces reported on August 28th that Russia had lost 261,310 troops in Ukraine since the beginning of its full-scale invasion on February 24th of last year. So that is the number that the Ukraine Armed Forces General Staff is coming out with as of today for Russian losses since the beginning of the special military operation. What do you guys think in the comments down below? Are you buying this number from the Ukraine Armed Forces? And if you're not buying this number, tell me why in the comments down below. The Guardian, they ran an interesting article the other day where they talked about, actually they confirmed the news that I was talking about yesterday with regards to a meeting that took place on the Ukraine-Polish border, which actually means inside of Poland, a meeting that took place between Zaluzhny, the U.S. military command, and the U.K. military command, NATO, the NATO command. And this meeting took place in Poland because NATO was not happy with the progress of the big super duper counteroffensive, and they called in Zaluzhny to rethink the strategy for the big super duper counteroffensive. Basically, NATO wants Zaluzhny to stop messing around in Bakhmut and in the north of Ukraine, and to redirect all of the resources and all of the forces that Ukraine has available towards the southern direction, towards Rabotinya, and to get to Melitopol, to get to Tokmak, and then get to Melitopol, and then get to the Sea of Azov, and then get to the administrative borders of Crimea, so that Elensky's scenario of Russian capitulation when they reach the administrative borders of Crimea comes true. So that's basically what this meeting was all about. It took place 11 days ago. NATO telling Zaluzhny, stop screwing around in Bakhmut and take everything that we've given you, whatever's left of what we've given you, and focus it on Rabotinya, because we need a military breakthrough, because this is a political imperative. It's a political imperative for the collective West that Ukraine shows some sort of progress, some sort of breakthrough in the counteroffensive. Anyway, I talked about this in my video yesterday, and The Guardian, they put out an article confirming that this meeting did indeed take place 11 days ago. In attendance was Zaluzhny. Also in attendance was Cavoli, the U.S., I believe he's the U.S. NATO military commander. And also in attendance was the new rock star of the Ukraine super duper counteroffensive, UK Admiral Tony Radakin. And The Guardian's article has the title, "That's Our Guy, How UK Military Chief Became Key NATO Liaison in Ukraine. Admiral Sir Tony Radakin recognized in Washington and Kiev as an increasingly important actor." And the whole article goes on about how Radakin is, he's the man. That's our guy. He's the big guy. He's the 10% for the big guy. Man running the show in Ukraine. And he's being recognized not only by the UK, but also by the US and the entire collective West as the real brains behind the counteroffensive, and the brains behind the amended, the new and improved counteroffensive that they cooked up 11 days ago. He's the man behind the curtain. He's the guy calling the shots. And that is what this article from The Guardian is talking about. It really does sound like a PR piece. It sounds like this is a planted PR propaganda piece to build up Tony Radakin. I don't know if they're trying to build him up so that he can go on to bigger and better things, or I don't know if they're trying to build him up so that they can tear him down, and eventually the US will blame Tony Radakin for the big counteroffensive failure. I still haven't figured that one out yet, but the article is definitely a PR piece for Tony Radakin, and it had some interesting photos that I'm going to put up on the screen right now. A photograph of Radakin taken on the Polish border with Zaluzhny and Cavoli in military fatigues demonstrates the warmth of the relationship. The Ukrainian general has his arms around both men. Normally, Radakin brings a bottle of Glenmorangie, Zaluzhny's favorite whiskey, as a gift. And you know, the photo, I look at the photo and I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. You know, the background is blurred, very, very professionally done. Seems very staged, very nicely touched up as well. I don't know, it doesn't seem like this was a photo kind of taken, you know, spur of the moment as these commanders were plotting out their next military moves. And it seems like it's a very strange photo to have been taken in Poland as they're fighting a conflict with Russia. Just a very weird photo. Something doesn't feel right about this photo that The Guardian is pushing out there in their PR article for the UK's Tony Radican. Anyway, Forbes, David Axe, he put out an article yesterday with the title, "As Ukraine's counteroffensive gains momentum, Russia is deploying some of its last good reserves." The Kremlin is rushing reinforcements to southern Ukraine's Zaporozhye Oblast in a desperate bid to prevent a major Ukrainian breakthrough along a critical axis. The reinforcements are from the 76th Guards Air Assault Division, which is arguably Russia's best division and is relatively fresh, according to Rob Lee, an analyst with the Foreign Policy Research Institute in Philadelphia, a think tank. An analyst at a think tank is telling Forbes that Russia is panicking because of Ukraine's alleged breakthrough in Rabotinya, and now they're sending their very best brigade to try and prevent Ukraine counteroffensive momentum. Just last week, it was a counteroffensive stalemate. Now it's a counteroffensive momentum. That the Russians are redeploying the 76th Guards Air Assault Division speaks to the growing momentum of the Ukrainians' 2023 counteroffensive. In just the last couple of weeks, the Ukrainian Army and Independent Air Assault Force have liberated Rabotinya and Zaporozhye, while the Ukrainian Marine Corps has ejected Russian troops from Urozhanye. The twin Ukrainian victories bring Kiev's forces a few miles closer to their main objectives in southern Ukraine. The Ukrainian aim to free the cities of Melitopol and Mariupol from their Russian occupiers. The Russians aim to maintain their hold on the cities in order to safeguard overland supply routes into Russian-occupied Crimea. These two victories, one of which is still up for debate. Maybe Ukraine will take Rabotinyo, maybe not. But according to Forbes, these two victories bring Ukraine closer to the ultimate goal, which is Mariupol and Melitopol. A few miles closer to Mariupol and Melitopol, which is their two main objectives. I don't know, should I break out a map again and show where Rabotinyo is located and where Mariupol and Melitopol are located, so we can see that, yeah, technically speaking, Ukraine is a bit closer to Melitopol and to Mariupol, but I mean, they are way, way, way far away from Melitopol and Mariupol. If it's taken the Ukraine military 3 months to get a foothold in Rabotinyo, to take, say, the north of this village, a village of like, I think like an abandoned village of, I think like 500 people, it's taken them 3 months to control the north part of this village. Then how long is it going to take them to get to Melitopol or to Mariupol, which are two huge cities, and in the meantime to take over Tokmak as well, which is a good-sized small city? How long is it going to take them to do that as they try and break through not a security zone, but a first line of defense, a second line of defense, and a third line of defense? Are they technically closer by taking the north of Rabotinyo? Yeah, sure. I mean, you know, there's the bench, right? Here I am, right here. Here I am. So I'm starting here. Am I technically closer now to the bench? Yeah, sure. I'm technically closer to the bench. I mean, you know, he's not lying. he's not really giving an accurate picture either. You know, the Russian government, they have been investing so much into Mariupol, construction and transportation and housing, apartment complexes. If you actually believe that the Ukraine military is going to capture Mariupol, well, then I've got what used to be a pond in a Greek park to sell you. Now it's all dried up. If you actually believe that the Ukraine military is going to ever control Mariupol ever again, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. All you need to look at is all the investment and construction that is taking place in Mariupol, and you understand that this is never going to happen. It's just not going to, Russia's not going to let it happen. Period. So anyway, that is what Forbes' David Axe is reporting. The outcome could come down to which side makes best use of its reserves. To achieve its breakthrough around Rapotinya, the Ukrainian Southern Command deployed one of its few in-reserve formations, the 82nd Air Assault Brigade. Now the Kremlin is deploying one of its few reserve formations. So I think the last paragraph is the giveaway as to why this article was put out there. Here's my hunch. My hunch is that Forbes and David Axe, they put out the article last week about how Ukraine was using its last elite reserve, the 82nd Brigade, in order to try and achieve some sort of breakthrough in the Zaporozhye direction. And that article got a lot of traction. A lot of people were talking about that article because it reveals that the big counteroffensive is in big trouble because Ukraine is having to use their elite reserve to try and break what the collective West was calling a stalemate. And now it's momentum. Last week it was a stalemate. Now we have momentum. But anyway, I think that Forbes and David Axe, they probably caught a lot of flack for that article. And so they have to come up with an amended narrative, to kind of explain the article from last week about Ukraine using their reserves, their elite reserve, in the Zaporozhye direction. And so what they've come up with, what they've cooked up is how, it's not only Ukraine that's using its elite reserve, but now Russia has to use their elite reserve. And Russia has to use their elite reserve in order to stop, not a stalemate, but in order to stop Ukraine momentum. So all is good with the counteroffensive. All is good. And Ukraine is getting ever closer to Melitopol and Mariupol. They're getting really close. Really close. So all is good. Keep the money flowing to the Elensky regime. Let's keep invested in this conflict. Keep your Ukraine flags on your social media profiles. And any day now, the Ukraine military will reach Mariupol and capture Mariupol. It's never going to happen. Never say never. I'm saying never. I'm saying never. They are not going to capture Mariupol, not with all the money, investment, construction that Russia is pouring into Mariupol. It's not going to happen. Anyway, let's get to a Financial Times article. And the Financial Times article has the title, Lost in Translation, Germany's Challenges Training Ukrainian Soldiers, Old Tanks, Aging Recruits, and a Lack of Competent Interpreters Complicate Berlin's Efforts. So this article, keep in mind that this is what the Financial Times is reporting. Meanwhile, Forbes is telling us that the Ukraine military has momentum and they're going to capture Mariupol. Anyway, Financial Times is telling us that old tanks, aging recruits, and a lack of competent interpreters complicate Berlin's efforts to train the Ukraine military. And so this article talks about how the German military, they're training the Ukraine military to use the Leopard tanks, and it's a 6-week training program, and it's running into all kinds of problems. But the big problem is language. Now, we've talked about language before with the F-16s and how the Ukraine pilots, before they can actually learn to fly the F-16s, they have to learn English. And now we have the Financial Times saying that the tank crews are having a hard time communicating with their German trainers because there's a language barrier. Now, that's not the important part of this article. Here's the important part from this Financial Times article. And I'm going to read you what they said. And this is somewhere in the middle of the article. But they also said, speaking of the German trainers, but they also said that the age and ability of the soldiers they are sent varies widely, as Ukrainian commanders on the front lines are often unwilling to spare their best men. One volunteer who turned up in Germany was 71 years old. 71 years old, turned up in Germany to be part of a Leopard tank crew. So the problem is not only language and interpreters, but it looks like the problem is also with the availability of military-aged fighting men. 71 years old. This is a German source from the Financial Times. It's not me. This is what the Financial Times is reporting via their sources in Germany that are training these tank crews. Oh boy. But Ukraine has momentum, and any day now they're going to capture Mariupol with their 71-year-old tank crews. 71-year-olds in Leopard tanks, breaking through 3-4 layers of Russian defenses. The Economist, they ran an article admitting that the collective West, NATO, is enabling Ukrainian attacks on Russian civilian targets. Kiev's drone program depends on Western-provided intelligence to circumvent Russian defenses, The Economist reported on the other day. So NATO's not involved in this war. NATO's not fighting a war with Russia. NATO discourages Ukraine attacks on Russian territory, but NATO is providing all the intel and the surveillance for those drone attacks to hit Russian territory, according to The Economist. And why does the Ukraine insist, and NATO, why does NATO and the Ukraine military, the Elensky regime, insist on sending drones into Russian territory when most of those drones that enter Russian territory are knocked out, are knocked down, either via air defense or via electronic means? Why do they keep on sending drones into Russian territory when it's not working? Well, the reason they do it is not to create panic in Russia. Well, they do want to create panic in Russia. They're hoping that one of these drones hits one of the high rises in Moscow City and creates panic and trouble for the Russian people and for Putin's government. But that's not the main reason why they insist on sending drones into Moscow. The main reason is given to us by the New York Times with an article that they put out, which has the title, "Ukraine's drone strikes against Russia are a message for its own people. U.S. officials say they expect Ukraine to continue its attacks because they send a message. Kiev can still strike back." Basically, what the New York Times is saying is that these drone strikes into Russia, while one of the goals is to create panic and fear in Russia, which is not working, the main goal, the real goal, is to propagandize the Ukrainian people. It's for domestic reasons. Because with each drone strike that's made towards Russian territory, the Elensky regime can put out a narrative that Ukraine is attacking Russia. Ukraine can attack Russia. Ukraine has the ability to attack inside of Russian territory. Therefore, Ukraine is still in this conflict. They can win. They can hit at Russian territory. So this keeps the people of Ukraine, the domestic population, this keeps them propagandized and keeps them invested in the war. It keeps the hope up. It keeps the hope up that eventually Ukraine is going to win this thing. That is why they send drones into Russian territory, according to the New York Times, as revealed by the New York Times. So let's now shift gears just for a little bit and talk about what's happening in Niger. I talked about how in my video, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, I talked about how the military junta government has given the French embassy an ultimatum to leave the country. They have told the French ambassador that he has to leave Niger. He's not wanted in the country anymore. Just the French ambassador, not the US, not the German, just the French ambassador. He has been told by the Niger government to leave. And when he was given this ultimatum, the French embassy, the French government, the French ambassador, they refused. They refused to leave because they say that they don't recognize this military junta government. So whatever orders they give to the French ambassador or to the French military bases, they don't consider these orders as coming from the internationally recognized government, so they don't need to follow these orders or follow these ultimatums. And so what did the Niger military junta do? Well, they just cut off the electricity and water to the French embassy. They also cut off the water and electricity to the French consulate in Zinder. So they're going to smoke them out, I guess is the right word. I don't know if that's the right word that you use. I think that's from the Wild West. We're going to smoke them out of that house. But they're going to cut off their electricity. They cut off their water. And so sooner or later, I imagine the French ambassador is going to have to leave the French embassy. Sooner or later, he's going to have to go, because without electricity, without water, well, who knows how long he's going to be able to hold out in the French embassy in Niger. I imagine there's going to be some sort of big evacuation of the French embassy in Niger coming soon, and this is going to really piss off Macron. Macron's going to push even harder for ECOWAS to intervene and to invade Niger. So I'm trying to think if I have a clown world. I kind of have a clown world. Yeah, I kind of have a clown world. Before I get to the clown world, how about the news, which is coming from the RT editor-in-chief, Margarita Simonian, who claims that Tucker Carlson is making a big effort to interview Russian President Vladimir Putin. This is what RT's editor-in-chief revealed yesterday. Tucker Carlson wants to interview Putin. Yeah, he's been wanting to interview Putin for a while now, even when he was with Fox News. I remember there was some sort of like mini scandal that broke out because Tucker Carlson actually made an effort via his producers to get in touch with the Kremlin, speaking with Peskov, and to try and set up an interview with Putin. This was like pre-SMO. And this was like a huge scandal, and the neocons were really pissed off about this, and I think it just broke down. There was no follow-up to the efforts being made by Tucker Carlson tonight with Fox News to interview Putin. But now we have an independent Tucker Carlson who can absolutely interview Putin. He doesn't need the permission of Fox News. He doesn't give a damn what the neocons think about it. And I imagine that eventually Tucker Carlson will interview Russian President Vladimir Putin. Putin is not shy about interviews with Collective West Media, even hostile Collective West Media. He'll give the interview. He'll give it. As Lavrov. Lavrov gives interviews to hostile Collective West Media as well. And so I imagine an interview from Tucker Carlson would be welcomed by the Kremlin, because Tucker is a straight shooter. He's fair. And he'll ask good questions. He's not going to softball the questions to Putin. He'll ask good, fair questions, and I think that's what Putin wants. That's where Putin thrives. So that was an interesting story. I think it's going to happen. Tucker Carlson interviewed Viktor Orban. Why not also interview Vladimir Putin, so the American public can get a complete picture as to what is happening with the conflict in Ukraine. I think that Tucker should interview Elensky as well. He should interview Biden as well, but I think Biden's going to have a problem being interviewed by Tucker Carlson. That's not going to happen. I think Biden's handlers will prevent an interview with Tucker Carlson. I think Elensky's handlers would prevent an interview with Tucker Carlson, because Elensky wouldn't be able to handle an interview from Tucker Carlson. That's for sure. I don't think Elensky has taken a hard interview to date. Has Elensky had a really hard pressing interview to date? I don't think so. So yeah, they're not going to let Tucker Carlson interview Elensky either. But I think the Kremlin will go for it. Anyway, let's do a clown world. We'll wrap this video up. And this clown world is courtesy of Jungle Joseph Borrell, who said in a statement yesterday, he said that he was proud of the fact that the EU imports from Russia have dropped to an unprecedented level. Borrell was proud of that. He said that in 2022, the European Union trade with the Russian Federation, imports from Russia decreased by 58%. And he was proud of the fact that exports also decreased by 54%. So that was Borrell proud of the fact that they have decreased import and exports trade with the Russian Federation. And how has that worked out for the European Union? It hasn't worked out well at all for the European Union. The EU, many of the EU member states, if not all of them, are in recession. Germany, most notably, is in recession. I believe the Netherlands is in recession. France is not doing so well either. I think there was a protest just yesterday in France that the media isn't covering, but fires were being set in France, in Paris yesterday as well. So how has it worked out for the European Union, the cutting off of trade with Russia? Meanwhile, Russia is growing. Russia is growing. I think there was a statement yesterday from the economics minister that Russia is expecting something like 3 or 4% growth by 2024. And business activity is surging, according to the economics minister of Russia. Russia has found alternative markets, and even the German population is worried about Russia's cooperation, their business and trade cooperation with China. Something like 3/4 of Germans polled are very worried about Russian trade with China. Olaf Scholz actually said the other day in an interview that Germany is currently experiencing unsatisfactory economic growth. This is what he told Bloomberg, unsatisfactory economic growth. That's an understatement. Olaf, unsatisfactory growth, really? And he warned German citizens and German businesses that the state is not in a position to subsidize their energy prices. So last year, in order to get through the energy squeeze, they were lucky. Europe was lucky because it was a mild winter. But what Germany did is that it subsidized electricity prices for consumers and for businesses. Well, now the German economy is in recession. The German economy is crumbling, and they don't have the money or the funds to continue to subsidize consumers and businesses. And so Olaf Scholz is telling the people of Germany that things are going to be very, very difficult this winter. And if it's a cold winter, if it's not a mild winter, and it's actually a very cold winter this time around, well, things are going to be very, very grim for Germany and for all of Europe, for all the EU. But Joseph Borrell, he's happy and he is proud of the achievement to decrease trade with Russia. That's what he's proud of. That's his big achievement as the chief diplomat of the European Union, is cutting off ties with the one country that provided Europe with all its cheap oil, gas, commodities, and resources. Congratulations, Jungle Joseph Borrell. How are things in the garden? Because the jungle is doing pretty damn good without the European Union. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, and Rockfin, and go to the Duran shop. 10% off. Use the code GOODDAY. I have been getting a lot of complaints about Rumble, that the videos from my channel, Alexander's channel, the Duran channel, sometimes they're not showing up on Rumble. I'm looking into it. I don't know what is going on. I can't figure it out yet. I haven't changed anything in how I upload the videos, but last week, it seems that our videos on the Duran across all three of our channels are not showing up on Rumble. And so I'm trying to figure it out. Please be patient. I apologize for this. I'm going to contact Rumble technical support or something like that and try to see what's going on, because I haven't changed anything on my part. I wonder if Rumble has changed anything on their part, or if if they're suppressing our videos, which I hope not, I doubt it, but who knows? It's a crazy world out there. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. Take care.